So you can't make America great again if you don't make America healthy again. Now, that's a battle cry that should be shared by Republicans, Democrats, independents. Everybody should want to make America healthy again, but it's not that easy. If you're like me, you scroll Instagram, you see all of the things that could possibly be toxic and make you sick, and you get overwhelmed. What can you really do in your own life to make simple changes that aren't going to cost a lot of money to maybe make yourself a little healthier, take some of these toxic chemicals and materials out of your family's home? It's easier said than done, but I want to kind of crack down on this and see what are some simple steps that everybody can take to at least start on that journey to make America, or just maybe even make their family healthy again. So joining me now is somebody that's going to help us do just that, integrative nutritionist and real foodology host, Courtney Swan. Courtney, I am so excited to talk to you. We have a list of things we want to get to. I want to get to as many as possible, but I want to start off just from you. If you were to say an area in the home that is most toxic, that the American family should address immediately if they address nothing else, what would that one thing be?
First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on today. And this is a hard question to answer because there's a bunch of them and I would love to talk about a couple of them. But I think maybe the one that people are most unaware of are their pots and pans, because they are, if you're using nonstick pots and pans, they're coated with this coating called Teflon. And the issue with this Teflon is that it contains something called PFASs, which are otherwise known as forever chemicals. And the problem with these, they are being called forever chemicals because the body does not know how to break them down. And they essentially are in the environment forever. And they are causing things like endocrine disruption, which means that it's causing infertility. They're linked to cancer, liver disease, kidney disease, and abnormal thyroid and hormone function.
So what is the alternative? Just look for pots and pans that don't have Teflon. I mean, I think it's hard for people because we see so many advertisements and it's supposed to be, this is great and this has this or this doesn't have that. And we see so many advertisements. Unless you're a professional in the space like you are, it's hard to know like what actually to look for. So what is the better alternative that still gets the job done? Because a lot of people, like for me, I'm not going to wear natural deodorant. It might be better for me, but I also don't want to smell like crap. So I have to have something that if I'm going to swap out, that's actually going to be effective. When it comes to pots and pans, what is that answer?
Yeah, so you can go for stainless steel, ceramic pans. There's also a couple companies that I really love that are making nonstick pans that don't have the PFASs and all these other chemicals in them. One being Our Place and another being Caraway. There's also another company called 360 Cookware, and those are all great options if people want to get a safer, healthier pots and pans.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. And I hope everybody will
Yeah.
check their pots and pans because Teflon used to kind of be the gold standard. That's what everybody had because it was nonstick and it was, it's relatively cheap. So another thing I want to talk about, you mentioned the endocrine disruptors. Now, this is something that I see obviously all over social media and it becomes very overwhelming. But one of the things that I've heard time and time again is the air fresheners, the plug-ins, even some candles. You think that something like a candle or an air freshener is really benign and you want your house to smell good and it's something that we've grown up with in our homes, candles and air fresheners and bath and body plug-ins. And it feels like, how could this possibly be toxic for us if we grew up with it and we're still alive and kicking? But what can you tell us about that and what should we be concerned about?
Yeah, so unfortunately, fragrance is now being called the new secondhand smoke because it is disrupting our endocrine systems. Our endocrine systems are what create our hormones, and when we're messing with those, we're going to see things like infertility and cancer go up. And so things like the Glade plugins, like you mentioned, also fragrance in cleaning products, in body care, also in your fabric softeners and your laundry detergent.
Wow. So basically
Yeah,
everything. So
yeah.
I want to ask you about this too, because like it's, you could not get a Glade plug-in. You can use something else. That's kind of an easy one. But when you start going down this road, as you just mentioned, of like, oh crap, my body wash, my detergent, my dishwasher soap, my hand soap, it becomes very overwhelming for people. And if people are like me, they're like, all right, just F it. I'm honestly, I don't feel like I can take everything out. So I feel like, okay, well, if I'm not gonna make my own detergent, then I might as well just use the body wash that's bad for me too. Like, what is a common sense way that people can go about making changes without having to be Susie Homemaker and make all their own materials?
Well, I have great news. There are so many amazing companies out there now that are creating healthier for you products, and you would have no idea that there's any difference between those and the ones that people might be using right now. There's a great resource called EWG. It's the Environmental Working Group. They have a website called Skin Deep, and if you go there, you can actually plug in the products that you're using right now, and they'll tell you if they're rated really high on the toxicity levels. And then you can also look up other products and see which ones are safer. There's also amazing websites like Credo, and I'm trying to think of another one like Thrive Market, for example. Pretty much everything on there is already vetted for and clean. And I know that this can be incredibly overwhelming. So I always like to remind people, start with one thing at a time. Maybe take a month and say, okay, I'm going to tackle my cleaning products. Then the next month, I'm going to tackle my beauty products. And just know that there's so many amazing products out there now that are made with safer, cleaner ingredients. So there are a lot of options for people now.
You mentioned the pans and food is a big thing. Like, I'm somebody who is very well aware of all the toxins in our food, especially when you talk about big agriculture. I come from a ranching family, which is the exact opposite of actually big agriculture. It's people that are raising meat and they're raising livestock and they're doing it in a way that's, it's not big ag, it's not tiny cages, it's not preservatives, it's not, all these things, but there's still going to be traces of this everywhere. We know that it's kind of insurmountable. But we hear a lot about the different oils, like the canola oils and the rapeseed oils and the high fructose corn syrup. That's been a discussion for a long time. And when you start looking at the ingredients list and pretty much every dang thing that you eat or use to cook with, they have those in them. How bad are they? Is it an overreaction? What are your thoughts?
I don't think this is an overreaction at all. I would encourage everybody listening to go to YouTube and just look up how canola oil is made. It is made essentially the same as an engine oil lubricant. It is not something that we should be consuming and putting in our body. Now, again, I have great news. You don't have to eat the canola oil. You don't have to be buying that. Now, by buying other products that don't have canola oil in there, you're already getting healthier products anyways. So start looking for products that contain avocado oil, olive oil, even beef tallow. There's a ton of amazing companies that are now creating new products with beef tallow. And this has been vilified for so long. But the thing is that we are now dealing with an epidemic crisis with our health right now, and we are vilifying foods that we have been eating for thousands of years. And that is just not what is driving these diseases. What's driving these diseases are these new oils, these new fats, these new chemicals, things that we are adding into our food system that have only been in our food system for the last like 25 to 50 years, depending on the product that you're talking about or the ingredient you're talking about. So we need to go back to eating the way that humans have eaten since the dawn of time.
Well, another part for me that's frustrating is that a lot of people like me, you're trying to find items that are healthier for you, but sometimes lower calorie is equated with healthier. And then you get in this spot where it's like, well, shoot, for example, the ice creams that are lower calorie, like the Halo Tops and that. I look in the ingredients list and it's like, I really don't recognize anything, but also I can eat the whole damn thing for 300 calories. So that's enticing to me. But again, it's hard when you want to try to cut calories. What would you tell people that are trying to kind of do both things? They're trying to kill two birds with one stone. They want to have something good. They want it to be lower calorie, but then they're also worried that, dang, is this thing going to be toxic even though it's lower calorie? How do people sort through that?
Well, I would say first and foremost, keep calories in the back of your mind, but that should not be on the forefront. First and foremost, we should be most worried about quality of food, because when you're focusing on the quality of your food, what happens over time is that you're nourishing your body and you're nourishing your cells. And when you're nourishing your body and actually eating foods that create satiety and nourish your body, over time, your body will naturally get enough nourishment, and you will not feel like you're starving and hungry and just like chasing calories all the time, if that makes sense. So like, I'll give you an example. When you're going for foods that have a lot of nutrition bang for your buck per se, so like ground beef or really good high fats like avocados, for example, when you're eating those kind of foods, you're going to get full and satisfied quicker than you normally would. So maybe on the upfront, you're eating a little bit more calories, but you're not going to eat as much food throughout the day because you're going to feel nourished and satisfied with the real food that you're feeding your body. So your body's not going to be chasing all these empty calories all day.
That's a good point. Kind of on that same vein, the air fryers. Now, you sent a list and air fryers were on your list, and I was like, well, damn it, because now that's supposed to be something that's healthier. Because if you don't want to fry something in canola oil or in grease, you're like, oh, well, the air fryer is great because it makes a healthier option. Air fryers have been insanely popular, especially for the last 5 years. But you're telling me there's something wrong with those damn things, too?
Yes, but I have great news because there are companies that are making better for you ones. So the issue with the standard air fryers that we're seeing out there on the market, they're coated with Teflon, which is the same chemical that I was talking about earlier that are on the pots and pans, and they spray it on all of these products to make it to where the food doesn't stick. But the problem is that we are emitting all these toxic chemicals either in the air with the air fryer, or if your food is touching it, it's getting into your food. But I have great news. There's a couple really amazing companies that make great air fryers. There's one from our place that looks really chic and cute on your kitchen counter. That's something that I love. There's also a glass one that you can get on Amazon. If you just type in glass air fryer, that's a great option. So it's not all air fryers. You just want to make sure that you're getting one that doesn't have all these toxic chemicals in it.
Yeah. Oh, it's hard because sometimes they're a little bit more expensive and people are struggling right now. So that's part of the problem. I want to talk
I
to you
know.
about something else because it's another, I think, a hot topic of conversation. People think that if they go to some place like Whole Foods, for example, they're paying a premium, so they think that the product is a premium, but there's still a lot of processed crap and different chemicals and dyes and stuff in the things that you get at Whole Foods. And even the produce, you have the apples, they might have a disclaimer on it, but they put the wax on the apples to make them last longer and to make them look prettier. So to me, you're paying a premium and you're not really getting a premium product. Do you think that Whole Foods and people that go to Whole Foods because they think it's just naturally going to be better for them, is there something that they should look out for? And what would you tell them about maybe health food stores in general?
So your last question broke up a little bit, but I think what I'm understanding from you is, are people getting a high quality product when they're shopping at Whole Foods?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. So unfortunately, Whole Foods has really gone downhill, especially in the last, I would say, like 5 years or so. I will say that if you're shopping at Whole Foods compared to, say, Walmart or Target, not trying to vilify those places because they also have organic options and they're all starting to carry like healthier, better for you options. But I would say in general, Whole Foods would be considered a little bit better. But unfortunately, consumers just really need to be educated on what ingredients they need to be avoiding. And I'll give you a really quick tip that I find really easy when navigating the grocery store. So my whole message is I think we should be eating more whole real foods as much as possible, but I'm also a realist. And if you have to eat something in a package, I think that's totally fine as long as you're reading the ingredient label. And what I tell people is if you read the ingredients and you could technically make that product at home, I'm not saying that you have to, but if you see an ingredient on there and it's like BHT and you think, I have no idea where in the grocery store I would ever find this ingredient BHT, that would be a product that you would want to put back on the shelf. You want to look for products that just have real food ingredients on the label. And unfortunately, now with Whole Foods, they're starting to carry stuff that has canola oil, these inflammatory seed oils, and just some other stuff that you're really not wanting to put in your body. So I would just argue that just everywhere you're going, just read ingredient labels as much as you can and practice discernment about whether or not that's real food.
That's a great tip. And I think that's helpful for people. It's hard when you read those ingredient labels sometimes because you have to be a
Yeah.
chemist to figure out what it actually is. And then you got to research if it's bad for you. And a lot of people just don't have the time. I want to talk a little bit about microplastics. So that's been the big thing is like the microplastics are seeping into everything, the forever chemicals, as you talked about, but it's even in our clothing. And I think people now are like, well, dang, I mean, I can't even wear this, that, or the other. Lululemon, a big popular brand, has microplastics in their clothing. How concerned should people be about microplastics as it concerns their furniture, their clothing, things that they might not naturally think could even cause a toxic reaction in their body?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and I would love to. I'll give everybody some hope at the end of this episode, but microplastics are a really big concern. I mean, you think about like you brought up the clothes, but I don't even think people are thinking about how much they're drinking water bottles every day that have plastic in them. And unfortunately, yes, we do have to worry about plastic in our clothing. And if you think about in workout clothes, for example, when you're sweating, your pores are opening and materials and toxic ingredients and the plastics that are in that clothing can get through your pores. And the problem is, and why everybody's sounding the alarm on this right now, is first of all, we know that plastics contain something called phthalates. Phthalates are also an endocrine disruptor. There's also an amazing scientist by the name of Dr. Shanna Swan. She has an incredible podcast on Joe Rogan. She was also on my podcast, and she's sounding the alarm on this because unfortunately it is starting to affect our reproduction and fetal development. And so this is a really big concern. There was a study that just came out recently, and they found in human sperm, 100% of the samples that they got, they all had microplastics in them. And they're saying that now humans are finding up to a credit card's worth. So about this size worth of microplastics in the human body weekly. Like that's how much we're consuming weekly right now. And so it is a really big concern. And I don't want to scare people, but I think when we raise awareness around this, there are other things that you can do to avoid these plastics. We just have to be a little bit more diligent, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, you said you were going to offer a little bit of optimism. So for my listener and my viewer out there who cares about this, they care about the microplastics in their body, they care about the endocrine disruptors and the impacts it would have on fertility or even their future children, but they're on a budget and they don't feel like they're, Chicken Little with the world falling in on them. Like they're not willing to do all the swaps, but they're willing to make an effort. Okay. Give us some optimism on how they could do that in a budgetary fashion, because a lot of people can't break the bank and buying all the expensive things. What is some optimism for those people who are maybe a little bit overwhelmed after listening to all of your warnings?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would say, take this information and do what you can with it, right? Like nobody can be perfect in this. I'm not even perfect in this. And I know about all this and I'm warning about it. So first of all, release the need to be perfect and just tackle the things that you can. Maybe 1 month you budget to get one new pan that you can use that doesn't have the toxic chemical coating in it. And then maybe the next month, once you're done with your cleaning products, then you find a cleaner option that's also in your budget. And then you switch those over. So there's little things that you can do over time. And then I would also remind people that our bodies are really resilient. Now, we are dealing with a lot on our bodies right now, and we want to reduce it as much as possible, but also remember that there are things that we can do to support our body's natural detoxification process. For example, if somebody has access to a sauna, if you have that in your budget, great. If you don't, just get Epsom salt from the grocery store, from CVS, put it in a really hot bath, not scalding, but hot enough to where you can actually work up a sweat. And that's a really free, easy way to get some sweat out, to get some toxins out. Also, just simply working out. And if you can't go to a gym, go for a run around your neighborhood. Getting the lymph nodes and the lymphatic system flowing will actually help to get some of these toxins out as well. Sweating always really helps. So I would encourage people to move their bodies every day, just something as simple as going for a walk. So there's a lot of things that we can do to support our body's natural process to get it out. And I would just encourage people to take it one step at a time, and then also just focus on moving your body and taking care of your body so that it can do its natural process.
Well, I like that because those are simple things. We know that diet and exercise are the most important. And now it's just refining maybe the diet part of it and removing some of the big things that we know to be toxic. And I hate government regulation, but I do think at some point there might need to be a little bit of regulation in terms of keeping some of these toxic things out of our food. It would be nice to be able to afford things and not have to go to Whole Foods or search the labels and everything. It would be nice if some of this was done for us, but unfortunately that day might not ever come. So I appreciate you giving us these simple tips. Where can people go to see and hear more from you to get some more common sense tips for them that they can integrate into their daily life?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been such an honor. I'm on Instagram at Real Foodology, and I also host the Real Foodology podcast, so people can find me there.
I love it. I will definitely be a listener and a viewer because I think this stuff is not only interesting, but it's so important. And you know what? Actually, it's bipartisan. We should all want to be healthier, and we should all kind of move towards that goal together as a country, as a society, as a people, as a human race. Thank you so much for taking the time, and God bless you.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
All right, folks, that does it for this special episode of Tomi Lahren is Fearless. I hope that getting a little bit of this knowledge will make you a little bit healthier. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.